Amy Jordan, welcome to the Woman Owned Podcast.
I am so pleased to be here and just to be in your company and the company of your audience. A bunch of women just kicking you know what and taking names.
Exactly. So I would love for you to kick us off with your woman owned story.
Absolutely. So I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I actually started as an entertainment marketing executive with dream jobs, including running marketing at Marvel Studios. So I had a great path to how I got here, but I really didn't feel like I was giving back in the way that I wanted to. And so I found Pilates as a hobby, something that really empowered me and helped me feel strong. And then I wanted to share that with others. So, as a little side hustle, I thought this was going to be my avenue to grow wealth. I opened a studio in my hometown using other people's machines, other people's movement approaches. I opened a second studio, both of which were absolutely thriving, highly profitable, very busy, absolutely loved the people I was working with, the team I had teaching with me. And then I knew I could do better. I knew I could do more because I started a deep dive into Pilates with a world master, training, learning more, trying different machines instead of just a reformer. And I literally sketched on a plane the idea of the WundaCore, which is now the patented machine we use, and began the process of creating that, prototyping it, and eventually rolling it out and launching WundaBar Pilates in 2011. 20,
Okay. Amazing story. So to recap, you start out as an entertainment marketing executive. You have a career doing that. Pilates is something you love, and you figure, you know what, I want to give back. So, did you sort of quit your job and then start the studios, or were you doing it simultaneously in the beginning? I'd love to just kind of get into a little bit of those startup details because there's so many women who, have thriving corporate careers who want to start their businesses. They're always curious about the specifics of what the transition looked like.
Absolutely. And I just want to tweak one thing that I just said. The studios actually were launched in 2012, not 2011.
Got it.
So I was a full-time marketer and I knew it wasn't for me, but I also was really scared about making sure that I was going to be covering my expenses and just being able to live life. And so what I did is I went into a consulting role. So I knew that I still had a significant amount of my expenses covered with that consultation business, but I also leaned really hard and put everything I had into becoming an entrepreneur. So I literally bought the first batch of machines with a little bit of savings that I had and covered the rest with credit cards.
Oh
When I
my
opened,
gosh.
when
Legit.
like really went for it. When I opened the first studio, there was not one stick of furniture in it. I borrowed three folding chairs from my girlfriend's mom, and that was it. So all it was like the speaker for the music, mirrors, machines, and these three folding chairs. I would work on my tummy, laying on the floor on my laptop. And then when I knew it was successful and it was thriving, this is my first location in Montrose, California. I said, let's do this again. I want to serve the Pasadena community. It's about 10, 15 minutes away. And I went down to $217 left in my bank account. And I no longer was consulting. I had given that up because the studio was doing so well and it was really filling my cup. And I again put my neck all the way out there for 200 until I had $217 left. And with lots of work, lots of focus, and lots of blessings, that studio also took off and we were in really good position directly after opening.
So, okay, so you've got two thriving studios and you are using other, machinery like reformers that we would know of as reformers that are built by other brands.
Yes.
What was it that caused you to say, "Hey, I could do this better"? Like, walk us through what was going through your mind as you were sitting on the airplane sketching out the first Wonder Reformer.
For sure. So I really knew that I wanted to offer more to my clients. I wanted to offer work on the Wunda chair. I wanted to offer ballet bar work. I wanted to offer a jump board, and it wasn't possible in the footprint that I had of my original studio. Certainly, it's very small. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to stitch these all together, bolt them all together. It's going to be a piece of cake. I sketched it, had the idea that actually resembles the current operating window former very, very closely. And the idea was, how can I get more out of a smaller footprint, right? So necessity is the mother of invention. I had a lease, I couldn't change locations, but I knew I wanted to offer more work that could benefit my clients in a more powerful way than only a reformer could do.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, in the same amount of space, you're now able to, you've designed a machine or you've sketched out a machine that can basically offer a bunch of different types of workouts. So, presumably, it allows you to serve your existing clients more holistically. Was there a part of you that saw an opportunity to use this new design to potentially bring in folks who were new, or was that kind of a part of the equation?
Absolutely. And the machine as it is now, they're all Pilates based apparatuses, but now they operate like a Swiss Army knife. So it looks very different at a glance. So people who might have a predisposition that, oh, Pilates is old timey, it's on those wooden machines, it's for chicks, they have this kind of predisposition. The design of the machine was intended to be more uniform, more universal. It's larger, it's, bulkier by design so that it can really withstand high volume of clients coming through every day. And it also supports people of lots of different sizes the way that old equipment does not. We serve clients, I have someone training up to teach for me who's 6'7". And I
Mm,
also have people teach and train for me who are 5 foot nothing. So
yeah.
there's lots of different opportunities to accommodate a lot of different shapes and sizes of people. And again, taking a little step away from what was and really bringing this into Pilates for the future.
Okay. So, you're on the plane, you make this sketch. Walk us through what happens next because it would be, I think, a couple years before you open the studios, right? Like walk us through that passage from sketching it out on a napkin or on a piece of paper. Walk us through your next steps.
Absolutely. So I really just have to rely on my network of people. It's so crucial in all aspects of life and just start reaching out. Hey, do you know a mechanical engineer? Hey, do you know an industrial designer? Started reaching out, found someone overseas that gave us these very rough sketches or very rough CAD drawings that didn't deliver on what I wanted, but it gave me enough to go with. And then it was my business manager at the time who said, hey, I've got this group out, on the outskirts of LA that knows how to build stuff like this. I went to them. They said, no, it's not us. It's the guy down the road. So it really was this process of just continuing to utilize the network of connections that I had to find the right people. I'd never been in manufacturing. I had never done anything like this at all. And I'm walking in high heels, click, click, click to these factories. And they're like, who brought her? Like, what is she doing here? And I was 3 months pregnant at the time. So I just brought these sketches and, they were game to go along with it for me. It was more of like a fun passion project for them. They normally do sheet metal for things like medical devices. And so it's really just become a great relationship with them to develop and create the machines. And the first prototype didn't work at all. Like non-functional.
Yeah.
Non-functional because I didn't understand yet the mechanics of what it would require for springs to lift you off the floor. I
Mhm.
didn't understand the mechanics of the surface we needed to jump against. So I ran my first training on a machine that didn't work. So the first
I
training
love
we,
that commitment. That's a true entrepreneur. Like, look, it doesn't work, but the show must go on.
but it
I paid
will.
for it though. Yeah.
And I moved the training to my mentor's Pilates studio because she had all the pieces parts in different pieces of equipment. So we had our non-functioning wound deformer middle of the room. And then we were using wounded chairs here. We were using a ballet bar along that wall. We were using a reformer over here with jump boards there. So we were utilizing best what we had. My son at that point had been born. He was about 3 months old. And so I'm breastfeeding him while we're doing this training. And it just goes to show that if you are really committed to getting this done and to sharing this with the world, you will find a way. You will find a path to get there, even when things are not linear, they're not going the way you expected them to. You just spent over $20,000 on a prototype that is quite literally useless.
I was literally just gonna ask you. I was gonna be like, how much did your prototype cost? So it only
That's
took you a
just
few months.
building it. That doesn't even include the mechanical engineer cost.
Oh
So,
gosh. So 20K, you spent probably presumably a few months. It doesn't work. What do you do? But you lead a class. People want to learn what this, it sounds to me like there is proof of concept in the sense that people wanted to do a class where they could do these different sort of modalities, I guess you might call it, related to Pilates, that were all Pilates anchored.
yes.
So what happens? What happens after this broken prototype or
So we,
non-functioning? It wasn't broken. It
if,
just didn't
yeah,
work.
just not usable prototype. We just went back to the drawing board, re-engineered it, took the weight out where we needed, etc. We got a functioning prototype. Now it's in my living room, and my son is learning to walk around it as a coffee table. And my dad, who's a carpenter, he would come over and he would help me tinker and he would work on mechanics of the pedal or of different things and literally like screw on different bits of wood, try different pieces for the jump board, shipments of rubber coming in swatches. So it became this very intense process, but it was functional and it was working and I was practicing on it and utilizing movement on it. We then, once we had that, could actually write a manual. So my original manual was co-written by my mentor with me. And so we shot the manual in my living room against a white wall. And it was paper. It's like 300 pages long. It was paper. And we then decided we needed to go into production. So we created, I think, about 12 units, maybe 10 of the actual machines. Again, an absolute fortune because we're making these one-offs for the first time ever, hand welded in the States, in Southern California. And again, I didn't have a studio to do this in. I was just looking for a spot. But there was a space, and I wasn't ready to like take out my existing equipment and put in these brand new pieces. It needed more testing. So, three doors down from my existing studio, I took over an abandoned or out of business hair salon. And we couldn't fit the machines in the way that you normally see them lined up beautifully like little soldiers. No, no. They were like this, they were like this, they were like this, they were at angles. One of them was over a hole where it was the plumbing for the hair washing bowls. It was wild. And that's where we ran another training. And that's where I had community classes. Of course, we're not charging people for this. And we're just running community classes, figuring out how we're going to teach this new approach to Pilates that I didn't know how to teach because I had never done it before. I knew how to teach Pilates on different equipment. I didn't know how to teach it on this. We ironed out quite a few wrinkles. We found a space in Studio City for our flagship store. And then we opened our flagship store in 2012.
Okay, amazing. So you make the prototypes. Now, if the original prototype is like 20K, I'm assuming you're probably spending close to 200, maybe not quite, but close to 200 to get your first 10 to 12 machines built. Is that fair?
Absolutely. When you
Okay.
bake in the engineering costs and the practice hours and the cost of the space, probably even more than 200. It was no small task.
And at this point, are you still self-funded?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so then you're not ready to put them in your thriving studios because it's still new. So you basically have started your own sort of R&D innovation arm,
Yeah, exactly.
of your business. So you
And
take over
literally my arm.
exactly, right? So you take over this former hair salon, you set up these 12 sort of initial Wonder bars helter skelter throughout, and you start running community classes for free to iron out the kinks. So tell us a little bit, how long were you running these community classes? Like, how did you promote them? How many people went through them? I think people need to hear this, that sometimes it's okay to start socializing an idea before you even soft launch an actual paid version. This is fascinating to me. So walk me through the community classes, how long you did them, how much, how you got people to them, and how many people you worked through them before you felt you were ready.
So it was just 1 month that we
Okay.
took over, and it was called a pop-up. So we just did a Wundabar pop-up. And I already had the branding on lock. I had the website. So we had developed, information and understanding that we could direct people towards. And we just invited all of our clients. We put up a poster in the window saying, coming soon, Wunderbar Pilates, email if you want a spot in class. Now, a QR code would do that just fine. But at the time, this was in 2012, it didn't exist, 2011 maybe, and for this pop-up segment. And so we ran dozens and dozens of classes. We were doing them a lot. And they would be pretty well attended. They're free, right? Everyone wants something for free and a free workout from a known entity in the community. And the teachers that were teaching there worked with me as well. So we had a really strong network that we could rely on. I know you talk a lot about the power of an email list, and this is one of those instances in when that was really helpful to us, because we certainly were putting out this information on eBlast because social media also wasn't a huge piece of our communication at that time. So email was really crucial, and that's how we got a lot of the word out, as well as choosing a location that had a lot of walk-by traffic. So it's a um, very walkable community that this studio was in, and so hundreds and hundreds of people would be passing it each day, and they were our target client. Mommies with strollers, daddies with kids on scooters. This is our target bread and butter client. And then since that demographic has expanded, but at the beginning when Pilates wasn't as popular as it is now, it was very often, people with discretionary income that could use it for this type of movement.
Okay, so you have about a month of pop-ups, you're really ironing out the kinks, and then you launch your first Wunderbar studio in Studio City. How far was that from, I believe it was Pasadena or,
Mhm.
Montrose? Like how far away is Studio City for us non-California folks?
So it's about 30 minutes. It was closer to where I was living at the time. I was living in the canyon. And so it was close to where I could be. So I would literally wake up in the morning, breastfeed my son, go teach early morning classes, go back, meet my mom down at the studio. She would stroller him while I would teach again. And this was just kind of the cadence of our life because it was brand new. And I had a teacher working for me, or an educator working for me there, and the studio was not busy at first. Everyone always thinks, oh, success is so quick, and now you're so successful. Of course, it just took off. Absolutely not. It was a totally new brand. It was on a stretch of Ventura Boulevard that was not super busy at the time. And it was when Pilates was still not really part of the mainstream. People would call it pilates. People would say, oh, honey, I heard you left your job at Marvel to teach yoga. That's great. And there was a lot of work I had to do internally about really trusting and believing that what I had to offer was worthy. And that even though I didn't come from a long history of teaching movement, I was a marketer, that I still knew that what I was offering was really valuable. And I had to lean into that because I had an educator who worked on my team for many years. After about 3 months, say, like, oh, are we going to close this studio? And I was stunned. I said, of course not. We're going to do every single absolute possible thing we can to get it going. It's part of this uphill push for a new brand, a new service, a new offering, a new location. And this is going to work because we have to decide. We have to believe, we have to take action and breastfeed at 5 in the morning and recruit your friends and family to help support you and stroller the baby up and down the street while you're teaching. And it went from there, and we relied on Groupon, believe it or not. This was when Groupon was brand new. And we were so worried, like, oh, is this going to, tarnish the brand if we participate in this? We did it. We sold over 1,100 packages. The studio could not, this is like June, so this is 3 months maybe after we opened. The studio could not handle the crush of people that wanted to come in and that were loving it. And we retained over 50% of those Groupon customers because what we did was excellent. And then we didn't have to worry about our brand being tarnished because even though they came from a discounted third party, we were able to retain their business and not have them just leave for the next low priced Pilates studio.
Okay, so you open the studio by June, thanks to Groupon, it really gives you access to a group of people who are actively looking for classes. You
Yes.
retain 50% of them. So to me, there's two things that are happening here. One is the growth of this new studio brand, and the other is the fact that you have this studio that has your own technology in it. So I want to kind of explore those separately, even though, of course, they're very much connected. But first, I want to ask you, so, 3 months in, the Wundabar studio is going gangbusters. What are your thoughts about the two studios that you have in Montrose and Pasadena? Are you thinking about transitioning those over to Wundabar brand? Walk us through your thought process.
Sure. So we knew that those studios were coming very busy, busier than Wunderbar by a mile at first. And it was really scary because I didn't I didn't feel like it made any sense for me to operate both. It just didn't make any sense. But I also needed to consider like bills. I had a new baby, all of these things that come along with that. So we let we actually ironed out more kinks in the machine and had our crew come and adjust some weld points in the parking lot behind our studio. So they pulled each unit out one at a time, broke them down, re-welded a certain pinch point that we wanted to adjust. So continuing to invest, continuing to troubleshoot and make sure it's the best it can be before we do any kind of rollout at scale. Because the way that my mentor said it to me, because I was very upset at first, like, oh, I wanted this to take off, and has this beautiful Dutch accent. She's from the Netherlands, and she said, um, for a tree to be strong, it has to have deep roots. And it really resonated with me that it was so important to find this grounding and find our footing below us before we expanded in a major way. So in September, not that long, in September of 2012, we transitioned both of my existing studios into Wunderbar, terrified, did a whole brand redress, all the machines in and out while I'm holding my baby, and this was in under 48 hours. We accomplished this with a team. It was not just me dragging machines in and out. And overall, from September through the end of the year, we had a 2% loss of with client attrition, but very
Wow.
little. And we really were able to get people excited about this idea of something new and something better and something built to serve them, because that's really what we were doing.
So 2% attrition, after the rebrand is impressive. And when you sort of look back at that transition, to me, one of the things that's interesting about it is that, it's one thing when you're just getting started. Like there's sort of the fear and the risk if it's the first time you're starting a business. There's a different kind of fear and risk when you have a successful business. And now in making this change, you are risking the business you've built. Which
Exactly.
fear for you was, like, bigger? The startup, where you're blithely starting your business, or the putting something very successful at risk? I'm curious your take on that.
Honestly, I'm a person who doesn't operate a lot from fear. So when I think about the fear, I consistently just said, nope, it's going to work. Nope, it's going to work. And what I was doing is making kind of alternate plans of what I could do in order to support the success. So I could lean back into consulting and do that even remotely. I could teach more classes and drive my payroll way down. I could look at another third party like a Groupon or, something of the sort. So to be honest with you, and I'm not saying I'm fearless. I mean, that's silly. You better be nervous when you're starting a business. But I intentionally would shift my focus to kind of what's that, ripcord, what I'm going to do if I have to pull a parachute, which parachute am I going to pull? And even as we continued to expand and put massive investment into a much larger order of machines or a much higher lease that we're signing in New York, I just really have that consistent approach of what am I going to do to make sure this delivers and this works.
Now, this idea of rebranding an existing business and, presenting something new to an existing clientele who love who you have been. What lessons did you learn about how to do that effectively? Because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who may not be in your industry at all, but are potentially looking at negotiating a pivot or a rebrand. or they're shifting how they're doing things, and they may be concerned about the impact on their existing business. So, what are your lessons from successfully retaining clients through a major rebrand?
We leaned a lot on their feedback. So we did a lot of surveying. We did a lot of, in the community after classes, before classes, chatting with them. What do you like? What's serving you? What feels, unusual to you? What are you not understanding about this new movement? And also leaning on some of the basics of what we know they know, because there is overlap, right, in how you can use a reformer and how you can use a wound deformer. The wounded chair was entirely new to them, so on the whole, that's really fun. We like that part, but this one feels a little bit different in the reformer part. So we were leaning into what they felt comfortable with. It was the same team they were comfortable with. They were just much better trained and could serve the clients better. So really being sure that what you're doing and why you're pivoting is going to improve and offer more for your customers and clients is a huge part of it, because they're going to see through any kind of marketing smoke and mirrors. They're going to see through cost cutting measures. They're going to see through any of that. So if you are truly and genuinely working to offer and create something that is better for them, that's the way that you're going to keep them engaged and excited about the change, rather than feeling like this is no longer for me.
Powerful. So let's talk about take us, it's 2012. You have three Wunderbar studios. Take us to like 2021, because another innovation is coming, but I'd love you to kind of take us through like almost the next 10 years of Wunderbar Studios. What happened? So it's 2021, 2022. Um, what does your business look like now
So
or at that point?
at that time, we've now expanded into multiple states. So we're operating in California, New York, and New Jersey. We have a few franchisees. As a just short little side note, we attempted the franchise model, didn't really resonate or work in the way that I had expected it to. So we set that aside, but we still have two franchise locations. The rest of the stores are under my umbrella, and I've had the blessing to build this incredible team on the East Coast who runs things with very little participation from me. Even in California, expanded so much that the team again is running things. But at that moment, we were just off the heels of COVID and operating in Southern California, in New York City, and New Jersey. There was no business. It was completely shut down for over a year. And it was brutal, because then coming back, you still couldn't win because people wanted vaccinated classes, unvaccinated classes, masks, no masks. You just simply couldn't win. So we hit a really difficult time. And I think it's really valuable to share kind of, I don't love the word failure, but things that didn't go as planned. We had to close 3 studios during COVID, because that is just the nature of what needed to be done. It was like triage, like just stopping the bleeding here so that we could hopefully retain the other roots and help them thrive. But what that did is it gave me a really clear, like, spotlight in the eyes that this could happen again. There's no reason that something's not going to come up, some sort of unrest, some sort of disease, that the government tries to control our operations again. I'm not trying to be political. It's just a reality of what
Absolutely. Yeah.
could happen.
You
And
saw that in like this, things beyond your control can totally impact your ability to run the business, and you have to prepare for that.
it was overnight. And we had a studio that was set to open in late March in Brooklyn. It was completely dialed, absolutely built out, machines in place, mirrors shiny, and it closed. That was meant to open on March 23rd, and everything shut down on March 19th. So, and we voluntarily closed on March 16th, just knowing it was coming. So it was an incredibly difficult time to get through. But it shone a spotlight on the fact that there needs to be more than one way that you're serving movement and health that are not confined to 4 studio walls. And so that's when a friend of mine came to me who's in the product development space, and she's a client and now a dear friend. And she said, "Hey, we help inventors bring products to market for consumer goods. It's insane that you haven't developed something. Let's go." And literally later that day, or maybe the next day, a little visual for you. I got some clay from my daughter's art cart and used a Barbie doll to sculpt the WundaCore. So this is the first sculpt of fixing the old Pilates ring. So if you're familiar with the circular Pilates ring, it's kind of flexy, it has handles on it. That was developed over 100 years ago. It's freaking time. This needed to be updated for movement for the future. So this literally is sized to a Barbie doll. We were testing it out on her. My son's filming it. My daughter's helping me sculpt. And so we developed this. And then in very short order, this is a much easier prototype to make. Then we got the prototype of the WundaCore. So you can see it there. And
Okay.
so this fixes the Pilates ring. You can see it's bendy and flexy, but it's also really sturdy. It's wider. You use it in all kinds of exercise, even at the gym on a squat rack. You can use it for all exercises to help drive effort and work to your core. So this is the goal of this. And so this is on Amazon. This is on other partner retail sites. This is on our site. And we sell it in our studios and use it in our studios and have gotten enormous positive feedback from our community because, again, it was swapping something out that they were used to. The old Pilates ring, we used to use them. It's a Pilates studio. Of course we did. And now no one even wants to touch it. I haven't seen them in my studios. My team has just kind of tucked them away because no one uses them. And I know one studio threw them all out.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is so, in both cases, it's interesting. In the first case, the development of the Wunderformer, it's really pulled by this inspiration. Hey, this could be better. And then the development of the WundaCore is really, again, it's like this could be better, but it's also in response to, hey, there needs to be a way to kind of diversify what we're doing, but also presumably ensure that our customers have the opportunity to practice Pilates at home.
Absolutely. And during COVID, we were doing Zoom calls. Of course, my living room was a production house for many, many months. Literally like professional lights bolted to the rafters. It was out of control. But what this also allows for me to do as a movement teacher, it aligns people in the way that I know that is the most safe and the most effective, in a way that an old circle cannot do. So this lines them up and it replaces my hands adjusting their knees, adjusting their feet, adjusting where their legs are relative to their torso. So it gives them basically a spacer or like a form to find so that they know what I'm asking for wherever it might be on their body. So it
Mm.
gives them that tool and that feedback when we can't be in person. And that then allows us to serve my heart and intention to serve as many people as possible to feel amazing in their skin. So this is now a worldwide product and a worldwide service in which we, help people move very far out of our four studio walls.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of things. So before we get into kind of the results of creating your own patented technologies, I'd love for you to just kind of give us the Coles notes of actually getting the patents. So it's one thing to create the designs, it's another thing to pursue the patents and protect your intellectual property. Could you kind of walk us through the Coles Notes version of that for folks who may also be inventors or emerging inventors and would love to just kind of know a little bit about whether it's worth it, when in the process that should they do it? Like what lessons learned do you have around securing patents?
Definitely. It's a tricky process. So I do highly recommend that you take action on your idea. So I believe in this notion. I read it in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, where a muse will come and tap you on the shoulder. We've all had ideas for inventions. Wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if? This would be really cool if. And if you're not going to action on it, then the muse is going to leave and tap on somebody else. And we've all also seen our idea show up on a shelf the next time you go into the store, like, oh, that was my idea. I had it 3 years ago. So I really believe in this process. So take action, start sketching, start sculpting. This is not fancy. This is clay from the drugstore. It's not fancy at all. My latest invention, I carved a yoga block with a bread knife. Okay, so it does not have to be fancy. If you can draw, probably ChatGPT can help you. There's lots of different ways to take action on it. Then you're going to want to prototype it. And that's going to be something that's just at your cost and you're hoping that it works. There's lots of different firms that'll prototype. Tons of people on Etsy will 3D print from drawings or ideas. You can fashion one. My first WundaCore after this was made out of tinfoil and duct tape and a binder clip. So take this from a Barbie doll onto a human body, because you have to give the designers scale, approximate sizing, suggestions for materials. You can also start a mood board, like where you're pulling an old Pilates ring, you're pulling some sort of sculpture that you like the shape of. So giving your designers some mood board space of what you want to create. Once you've got a prototype that is functioning in the way that you want it to, that's when it has to be more polished and professional. So you need to have actual engineered drawings done by a patent trained designer, and you're definitely want to hire and retain a patent attorney. Those costs can range wildly depending on what you create. So my window former machine has 16 patent claims. It's a very thick patent. It was not cheap. It was, at the time, I want to say it was like $15,000 just for the attorney work. That didn't include the engineering drawings. And it takes over 2 years to get your patent. It takes a long time from the time you submit it. For the wound deformer, because it was relying on others' previous inventions of a reformer and a wounded chair, then I had to do an interview with the patent office explaining why it was different, what was different about it, and just be really educated and ready to give that information. And that's called a utility patent because it's something that's functional, right? It's something that I'm patenting the use of it. For the WundaCore, I patented the design of it. And so that's a much less complex way to get a patent if it is a design, and there definitely is function, but it's a lot less tricky than a machine. And so this patent was far less expensive. I want to say it was under 5,000 to submit the patent and have the drawings, but it still took over 2 years. I submitted it in March of 2020 and I just got it last month, the actual patent.
So let's talk about then the impact of of trusting your instincts, of acting on your ideas, and of bringing new innovation to the marketplace. So I'd love to kind of break this down into two kind of categories. One was the impact on the business. And the second, very much related, but is the impact on you as a woman, as a leader of having done this work. So let's first talk about the business. So there's kind of two stages to this. One was the Wunderbar Studios, which were really anchored around the machines, like the reformers, the Wunderformers. So, what was the impact of launching the Wunderformer, the Wunder Studios, which were sort of built around your unique patented technology? What happened as a result of you bringing that innovation to market? What impact did it have on the business?
Such a major impact because, as we all know, it's really important and valuable to stand apart from your competitors. And so having a patented exclusive piece of equipment, having an exclusive brand, a trademarked brand, so protecting your assets and your IP is critically important. And then really leaning heavily into that branding, heavily into that consistent marketing message is going to attract a lot of attention. So that attracted our franchise locations, that attracted business partners, and that attracts clients as well because they're walking by and it says Pilates, but that doesn't look like the Pilates machines I've been on. And it gives a lot of interest into what you're offering. Then they get in, and what you're offering is so far superior to everything else that's on the market that is very same, and we are very different, but rooted in the quality and the integrity of really valuable movement, that people then become absolutely your devotees, and they are so invested in being a part of this community and being able to experience the machine and the way we approach movement. And so it allowed me to expand from 2 studios where I was paying someone else to now there are 9 corporate studios, and those studios are all the income is coming my direction. I'm serving thousands and thousands of people, which is at the heart of my vision and my purpose. And it's allowed us to generate multi-million dollars year over year and recover from something like COVID and just continue rebuilding. And we're more profitable now than we were even before COVID.
Oh,
So
amazing. And then tell us about the WundaCore because this is a newer, thing. I'm curious about bringing this new, like second innovation or next innovation to the marketplace. What do you see? It's early days, but I'm curious about the impacts of this on your overall business.
it's early days. So far, the WundaCore has generated six figures, but we're still kind of on that bubble of we invested a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
But in November 11th, which is a powerful 1111 number, we are launching three new colors. We're launching two yoga mats, and we're launching some latex-free resistance loops, which are very difficult to find unless they're fabric, which I think is kind of nasty.
Yeah.
And so we're launching in beautiful new colors, and I have a new invention that is going to be launching in January. So we're continuing to invest in that business, but there's so much potential in the market, and it's really starting to attract a lot of attention from potential really key partners for sales and for placement into key studios that are going to help that business continue to grow. So we're still in that phase where we're getting word out there, but it's been in my studios for a little over a year now. So proof of concept is there, proof of idea is there, and now we're fine tuning our sales approach, our marketing approach, and expanding the product line. Because if you have one product, that's not going to get you a lot of traction in retail. And so that's one of the reasons we're expanding the product line, as well as providing additional tools to help serve really healthy and exciting movement. So this next product in January, I'm also going to be submitting for a patent to continue to protect that IP and be really standing apart in the market as an innovative brand.
How did this bringing new ideas and innovations to market and patenting them. We've talked about how it's impacted the business. What impact has this had on you as a woman, as a leader?
It just lights up my soul to see people healing and feeling strong and empowered in their own skin. It's so powerful. And creating tools to let them do so and find it for themselves, because I can't move for you. You have to find it. You have to do the work inside of your own skin. But being able to develop approaches to movement and training my team, being able to deliver tools that give them a better experience and a better result in their body than they've ever had before is so rewarding. And overcoming things that were an issue very early on, things like I'm a marketer, what do I know, how would I know how to make a machine, how would I know how to teach someone who has a shoulder problem, and really overcoming that, investing in my training, investing in what I knew and how I could help, and really knowing that being the new person in the industry was a huge benefit. It actually was my secret sauce, my magic, because I wasn't beholden to the old ways. I wasn't beholden to this elitist experience of Pilates that if it wasn't Joseph Pilates' way, then it's not Pilates. I don't have any time for that. Like, that was great, but that's 100-year-old technology, over 100 years old. And I value and respect what Joseph Pilates started, and I use that as the base and the root of what we do, but it's now taking it into the future with the science that we know now, the biomechanics that we know now, and how can we serve people with movement for their future?
Yeah, it's almost like if science stopped at Isaac Newton. Like that, what would we
Exactly.
not have? Yeah, we honor our teachers, but I think a big part of being a student is to take that work forward and to innovate and create, and make it something new and relevant and fresh.
And if someone's listening right now who's thinking about making a major pivot into a totally new industry, if they have fresh ideas or ways to improve that industry, I say lean into it and go wholeheartedly into it, because the reason is you have that fresh approach that's going to attract attention, that might have people that don't love the idea, but listen, all attention is good attention, and you want to receive it and be able to create and bring your take on it into the world, because it's valuable to be first. It's valuable to look at something in a new way and help bring more people service with whatever the product or idea is that you're sharing.
Where should people go if they want to learn more about you, if they want to check out one of your studios or buy the WundaCore for themselves to use in their own, in their own practice or, the other stuff that's coming as well? Curious about where we should lead them.
Excellent. So you can find me at Amy Jordan Official on Instagram and TikTok. And if you DM me the word, should we say woman owned? Let's say woman owned, then I will give you a link to a Zoom workout that I do. So wherever you are in the world, you can join me for a free Zoom workout where you can kind of see how we can move together and how we can improve how you feel in your own skin so you feel empowered and strong for the day ahead. You can also find the studios at Wunderbar Pilates. And you can get a WundaCore on Amazon, or we are on Instagram and TikTok at WundaCore. That's WUNDACORE.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience with us.
It was my pleasure to be here and discuss how things grew. Thanks, Eleanor.